Hello everyone, welcome back to GGN. This is part 3. Sorry if I'm messing you up here, confusing with the parts, but this is part 3 for today. It's Thursday, April 18th, 2013. Alright, I'm going to continue here where we left off, talking about how the media is covering this whole Boston thing. Usually they have a finger to point at someone right away, but it's not coming out, which is kind of unusual, but they're trying to do the same thing, like I said, where they're trying to demonize the media and say, you need to shut up. And remember, we just covered about how, what not to tweet and around a tragedy, after a tragedy, So they're trying to silence any kind of skepticism that revolves around these events. They're not all false flags. It could be genuine. But it's worth at least being skeptical and not just being naive to be pushed into a corner with certain agendas. All this chaos. So we were talking about what this individual 17 who's Arab or basically a Middle Eastern, and he's 17, he's snatched up, and they got him based off his race. It says here, I'm not the Boston Marathon bomber. Then you have this Muslim woman that was actually, assaulted by a man because of these reports coming out about a dark-skinned Boston bombing suspect. Then we have this article from Salon. Let's hope the Boston Marathon bomber is a white American. It says here, as we now move into the political or official political aftermath period of the Boston bombing, it will determine long legislative fallout of atrocity. So, but it's interesting because they start talking about privilege. So it goes on and says that white male privilege means white men are not collectively denigrated, targeted for those shootings, even though most come at the hands of white dudes. Goes on here and he says that such privileges mean non-Islamic terrorists, or white non-Islamic terrorists, are typically portrayed not as representative of whole groups or ideologies, but as lone wolf threats to be dealt with as isolated law enforcement matters. Meanwhile, non-whites or developing world terrorism suspects are often portrayed as representative of larger conspiracies, ideologies, and religions that must be dealt with systematic threats. And it goes on and it says potentially requiring everything from law enforcement action to military operations to civil liberties to foreign policy shifts. So that's a bunch of crap because we've already covered all the stuff that's going against mostly they don't say white, but that's who they're talking about, conservatives and stuff, Christians, and Homeland Security reports. It says here, white privilege is knowing that even if the bomber turns out to be white, no one will call for your group to be profiled as terrorists as a result, subjected to special screening or threatened with deportation. It says this privilege is knowing that if this bomber turns out to be white, the U.S. government will not bomb whatever cornfield or mountain town or stale suburb from which the said bomber came from. So we have here a well-known Jewish racist and former AIPAC staffer David Sirota, writing in Salon magazine, has used the Boston bombing as an excuse to launch yet another attack on European Americans as part of his tribe's divide and conquer strategy in America. Sirota, who worked in the Jewish lobby group AIPAC's political department, launched the vicious attack in an article, Let's Hope the Boston Marathon Bomber is a White American, claiming that there is a double standard in the treatment of white terrorists and Islamists. In fact, Sirota is no friend of Palestinians, Arabs, or for that matter Muslims. He's a former AIPAC staffer who supports the racist, terrorist, Jewish supremacist state of Israel and has supported a number of pro-Israeli candidates and causes. European Americans are still the vast majority of American population. That's the answer to is why this Jewish extremist is defending Muslims now and attacking European Americans. Says if the small, hyper-racist Jewish cabal is going to control American policy and keep it supporting the terrorist, racist nation of Israel, it must make sure that European Americans are demoralized and divided. I think that's just basically everybody but them as well, FBI releases video photos of Boston Marathon bombing suspects. FBI ignores men with backpacks at scene of Boston bombings. Says other photos will not be deemed credible. Says the FBI has attempted to blacklist photos which show men working for a private military organization wearing heavy backpacks and appearing to take part in a drill at the Boston Marathon, instead of focusing on two other individuals while proclaiming other photos will not be deemed credible. And not only ignoring not only ignoring but aggressively attempting to discredit the photos showing the men who are likely employees of the private security firm Kraft International. says the FBI signals its intention to continue to cover up what really happened. 2 ex-Blackwater contractors ordered to prison for killing Afghans. Blackwater contractors have been ordered to report to federal prison after exhausting appeals for convictions that they killed civilians in Afghanistan. It says here they were each convicted of involuntary manslaughter for fatally shooting 2 Afghan men and injured another. So as far as these private contractors, here's a picture of a couple of them. Right there as well again. And then moving down to more Navy SEAL contractors. Are they rendering aid? What's in their backpacks? There they go, running right there. So, been too that these people were the ones that actually dropped their backpacks and set the things off, and then blamed them on these 2 Middle Eastern guys. It says marathon bombing hero questioned by FBI and police at Boston. So they're gonna. That's how it always goes with these lone gunmen and stuff like that. They're going to question everybody, but really start investigating the people that are like these handlers or these guys that are hiding out in the bushes, like the Sandy Hook shooting or whatever else. But now they're going to go ahead and investigate this guy. He says he has no the hero of this whole bombing tragedy. We need more cameras, and we need them now. This is from Slate. So the case for surveillance. Says here that cities under threat of terrorist attacks should install networks of cameras to monitor everything that happens at vulnerable urban installations. Yes, you don't like to be watched, neither do I, but it's just a part of life. But all the measures we can consider to improve security in an age of terrorism, installing surveillance cameras everywhere may be the best choice. They're cheap, less intrusive than many physical security systems, as will hopefully be the case with the Boston bombing. They're extremely effective at solving crimes. A new poll reveals that a majority of Americans are becoming increasingly afraid of ongoing acts of violence committed by homegrown militants. So Americans fear homegrown militancy, or domestic terrorism. Says the poll was taken 2 days following the Boston Marathon bombings. On Monday, 56% of Americans said that random acts of violence, such as mass shootings committed by Americans, is the biggest threat to public safety in the U.S. Says that 2/3 of respondents said they believe an incident like the Boston Marathon attack that killed 3 people and wounded 130 others could happen in their area. War veteran arrested for rudely displaying rifle. A decorated war veteran on a Boy Scout hike with his 15-year-old son was arrested alongside a Texas county road after police accused him of rudely displaying a firearm. So it goes on here, says that he was illegally disarmed by members of the Temple Police Department even though he held the proper permits to carry his weapons. They had a AR-15 and a .45. It says here they were out there basically in a rural area, hiking and hunting. He was charged with resisting arrest, even though the video his son filmed of the incident clearly showed that he did not resist arrest. They later reduced the charges to interfering with a peace officer while performing a duty. That he refused to hand over his weapon during the arrest. He said, "I'm still frankly and honestly 100% confused about what I'm being charged with." The officers told a handcuffed Grisham, "In this day and age, people are alarmed when they see someone with what you have. They don't care what the law is." Grisham is a huge constitutionalist, then asked the officer if he cared what the law is. So he goes on here and he says that for the first time in my life I had to sit in jail. I've never been in jail, never accused of a crime, and I was treated like a street thug. 77-year-old dies after wandering from state veterans home being stunned with taser. 77-year-old Korean War veteran with Alzheimer's wandered away from Montana veterans home in Columbia Falls, was shocked by police with a stun gun, fell face first on the pavement, and died in a hospital. About 3 weeks later, a lawsuit filed by the man's granddaughter charges. Said he was agitated, but basically what it came down to was that he refused to cooperate. 15-year-old girl kidnapped by German police, given psychiatric evaluation for being homeschooled. It says here she's kept from her parents after the results of the evaluation determined she shows a disturbing sense of family solidarity. The 15-year-old girl kidnapped by the police was given the psych evaluation for being homeschooled. So you can go in there and check it out. Shows how oppressive a regime could become when government has authority to remove children from the home. So it says here that she was basically taken in a SWAT-style police raid. They consider her family dangerous because her parents were homeschooled her daughter. She was later placed in a foster care. allowed to see her parents for an hour a week. That's what I think. That's what I'm saying about all the security around schools. She was diagnosed with school phobia by a state-paid shrink, declared mentally ill, and locked in an asylum because she opposed the government's policies and believed in God. The German government denied that she was removed because she was homeschooled by her parents, but because of her strong family tie and obedience of her father, who authorities considered insane. PT parents protest sex ed material. An overflow audience attended Monday's meeting at the Township School Board to address parents' concerns about a program on human growth and development that is being taught in the middle school. They're talking about the human growth and development supplemental material was not suitable for some fifth graders. It says particularly objectionable was a list of websites that referred middle school students to various sites. Says the particular reference was removed from the fifth grade curriculum and was not referred to in any classroom instruction. She also objected to descriptions of bestiality, masturbation, and group sex. Said a vast majority of the audience appeared to support Alexander's position that the curriculum was too personal and too advanced for those in 5th and 6th grades. After Outcry, Grisly trial of abortion doctor gets notice. It goes on here and it says that Dr. Kermit Gosnell, the abortion provider accused of murdering seven viable fetuses and causing the death of a pregnant woman in a botched procedure, has been on trial for 4 weeks, but despite the grisly charges, the trial has received mostly local attention until now. It says the fact spurred a massive outcry last week, with critics asserting the national media was ignoring the trial because it revolves around late-term abortion, reality that pro-choice advocates would rather not discuss. There's been similar polls like this one for the U.S. and Europe and U.K. Majority of French believe media does not reflect reality. New poll reveals that some 72% of French people believe international media does not reflect the real problems and issues of the world, which is why they do things like this, and it's not really covered all that much. The March for Life, annual demonstration protesting abortion in Paris, and they do this every year since 1975 with a law that legalized abortion in France. 2010 saw a sharp rise in attendance, possibly as high as 25,000 compared to 15,000 the year prior. Remember this, 1.4 million French march against gay marriage, police tear gas, crowd, and children. That's right. And there was a lot going on here, and you could be rest assured that there was provocateuring going on. I was reading an article from more of a leftist website, and they were basically talking about how these people were all Nazis and right-wing extremists. What I saw was guys dressed in black with like little bandanas standing up on light poles and lighting off smoke bombs, and they were in the front of the crowds, and there was one of them, and they were pushing. They just touched the little shield, and then it just started, right? Then they pepper sprayed the crowd. So I mean, these are provocateurs, and they're very intelligent operations to basically squash and discredit any type of opposition. Sprayed tear gas, and they were beaten near the presidential palace. Victims included children as young as 6, elderly gentlemen, women of all ages, middle-aged priests, monks, and even a baby aged 10 months. So this is why you get crap like this from Raw Story, which is Francis Holland blasts homophobic violence following same-sex marriage protests. You see how smart and slick they are? I'm not saying that there aren't conservatives that are to carry out violence on gays or gay bars. I'm just saying that overwhelmingly they provoke things. But like what happened? They passed it. They passed it anyways, even though there was a huge public outcry against the legalization. Pope Francis supports crackdown on U.S. nuns. Says here that the Vatican said Monday that Pope Francis supports the Holy See's crackdown on a large umbrella group of U.S. nuns, dimming hopes that a Jesuit pope whose emphasis on the poor mirrored the nuns' own social outreach would take a different approach than his predecessor. He said here that the sisters took positions that undermined the Catholic teaching on priesthood and homosexuality while promoting radical feminist themes incompatible with the Catholic Church. It says here that investigators praised the nuns' humanitarian work but accused them of ignoring critical issues including fighting abortion. Professor Stephen Hawking tells students the universe does not need a God to exist. Contrary to the feelings of many God enthusiasts, God enthusiasts, the universe did not require a deity to create, nor does it require one to continue existing. So you can shoot yourself up into space there, buddy, and you can spend a nice, long, lonely life on the moon or something. So we're going to continue off here and continue in part 4 with this theme or subject. This is GGN. Thank you.